A world that should not have survived. Most people imagine medieval life as hard. But survivable. Castles. Kings. Knights. A slow, primitive world that somehow kept moving forward. But that image is wrong. For centuries, medieval humanity existed one disaster away from extinction, and often, that disaster already happened. There were moments when entire regions lost half their population. Times when children stopped being born. When adults forgot what a full stomach felt like. When death became so common, it stopped being feared. This is not a story of progress. This is a story of survival by accident. Tonight, we explore the bizarre, horrifying, and often forgotten ways medieval people nearly vanished from history, not once, but repeatedly. And how modern civilization exists today. Only because extinction failed. Surviving was never guaranteed. In medieval Europe, survival was not a baseline condition. It was a temporary achievement. Most people lived with no medical knowledge, no sanitation, no understanding of disease, no control over food supply. A single bad year could erase generations. Modern Americans think in terms of recessions or pandemics. Medieval people thought in terms of, will anyone be alive next spring? The Great Famine no one talks about. In 1315, rain began to fall. Not storms. Not floods. Just, endless rain. Fields drowned. Seeds rotted underground. Animals starved first. Then humans followed. Bread disappeared. Grain prices tripled. People ate grass, bark, leather. Chroniclers recorded parents abandoning children, not from cruelty, but inevitability. Some villages lost 60% of their population. This wasn't a bad harvest. It was civilizational collapse in slow motion. When hunger changed human behavior. Starvation doesn't just kill the body. It rewires the brain. People stopped helping each other. Communities dissolved. Trust vanished. Reports describe grave robbing, infanticide, cannibalism, rare but real. Medieval law collapsed, because no one had the energy to enforce it. If the famine had lasted 2 more years, Europe may not have recovered. They didn't know why they were dying. When disease arrived, medieval people had no concept of bacteria. Illness was punishment. Astrology. Bad air. Divine anger. Doctors recommended bloodletting. Mercury. Animal dung. Treatments killed as many as diseases. Survival rates dropped, because help made things worse. A world without children. After repeated famines and plagues, something terrifying happened. Birth rates collapsed. Women stopped menstruating from malnutrition. Men became infertile. Entire decades produced almost no children. This is how civilizations truly die, not through violence, but silence. When medicine became more deadly than disease. Take a slow breath. There is no urgency here. No alarms. No modern noise. Only the quiet echo of a world that nearly disappeared. In the medieval age, people did not fear doctors because they were expensive. They feared them because treatment itself could be fatal. Tonight, we continue the forgotten story of how medieval humanity came dangerously close to extinction. Not through war. Not through monsters. But through medicine without understanding. A world without science. In the medieval world, there was no concept of germs. No bacteria. No viruses. No infection. Illness was believed to come from bad air. Misaligned stars. Sin. Divine punishment. If you became sick, it was not seen as biological failure. It was seen as moral or cosmic failure. This belief shaped every medical decision. And it killed millions. Bloodletting, bleeding the living. One of the most common medieval treatments was bloodletting. The logic was simple. If illness exists, something must be removed. Doctors believed the body contained four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Any imbalance meant disease. So they removed blood. A lot of it. Patients suffering from fever, weakness, or infection were already dehydrated and malnourished. Bloodletting pushed them closer to death. Some patients were bled repeatedly. Until they collapsed. And never woke up. This was considered successful treatment. Poison as medicine. Medieval doctors used substances we now recognize as deadly. Mercury was prescribed for skin disease, mental illness, infections. Lead was used in ointments, cosmetics, medicines. Arsenic appeared in small doses. Until small doses became lethal. Patients didn't die from illness. They died from the cure. Over time, entire populations became chronically poisoned. Behavior changed. Fertility declined. Lifespans shortened. No one knew why. Surgery without sterility. Medieval surgery existed, but not safely. No gloves. No sterilization. No anesthesia. Instruments were reused without cleaning. Wounds were stitched with dirty thread. Bandages were reused, sometimes still stained with blood. Infection followed almost every procedure. Amputations often led to gangrene, sepsis, death within days. Surgeons did not wash their hands. They wore blood-stained clothing as a symbol of experience. It was a uniform of death. The Black Death made it worse. When plague arrived, medicine accelerated extinction. Doctors wore masks filled with herbs, believing smell caused disease. They burned incense. They rang bells. They prayed. None of it stopped the bacteria. Bloodletting weakened patients faster. Poisoned medicines killed survivors. Entire cities emptied. In some regions, 1 out of every 2 people died. Humanity came close to demographic collapse. When doctors fled. In many towns, doctors simply left. Medical professionals abandoned cities when plague appeared. Those who stayed were often untrained, desperate, dangerous. People turned to soup. Bloodletting pushed them closer to death. Some patients were bled repeatedly. Until they collapsed. And never woke up. This was considered successful treatment. Poison as medicine. Medieval doctors used substances we now recognize as deadly. Mercury was prescribed for skin disease, mental illness, infections. Lead was used in ointments, cosmetics, medicines. Arsenic appeared in small doses. Until small doses became lethal. Patients didn't die from illness. They died from the cure. Over time, entire populations became chronically poisoned. Behavior changed. Fertility declined. Lifespans shortened. No one knew why. Surgery without sterility. Medieval surgery existed, but not safely. No gloves. No sterilization. No anesthesia. Instruments were reused without cleaning. Wounds were stitched with dirty thread. Bandages were reused, sometimes still stained with blood. Infection followed almost every procedure. Amputations often led to gangrene, sepsis, death within days. Surgeons did not wash their hands. They wore blood-stained clothing as a symbol of experience. It was a uniform of death. The Black Death made it worse. When plague arrived, medicine accelerated extinction. Doctors wore masks filled with herbs, believing smell caused disease. They burned incense. They rang bells. They prayed. None of it stopped the bacteria. Bloodletting weakened patients faster. Poisoned medicines killed survivors. Entire cities emptied. In some regions, 1 out of every 2 people died. Humanity came close to demographic collapse. When doctors fled. In many towns, doctors simply left. Medical professionals abandoned cities when plague appeared. Those who stayed were often untrained, desperate, dangerous. People turned to superstition instead. Flagellation, magic charms, astrology. Science had not failed. It did not yet exist. Women and childbirth, a hidden extinction. Childbirth was one of the deadliest events in medieval life. There were no antibiotics. No sterile environments. No understanding of hemorrhage. Women died in childbirth constantly. Midwives worked with knowledge passed orally, some helpful, some fatal. Entire bloodlines ended quietly. One birth at a time. Population growth slowed to a crawl. At times, it reversed entirely. A silent decline. With disease, famine, and medical failure combined. Something strange happened. People stopped expecting the future. Marriage rates dropped. Birth rates collapsed. Communities shrank. Survival became individual, not collective. This is how extinction begins. Not with explosions. But with apathy. And yet, against all logic, against all probability, humanity survived. Barely. In the next chapter, we will explore how religion, fear, and mass hysteria pushed medieval society even closer to collapse. When belief itself became a weapon against survival. For now, let your thoughts slow. Let history fade gently into sleep. This world is gone. But its warning remains. When faith turned into fear. Settling into the past. Slow your breathing. There is no rush in this world. No clocks. No certainty. In medieval times, faith was not only belief. It was survival. But when fear entered faith, something changed. Belief became desperation. Desperation became violence. And violence pushed humanity closer to disappearance. Tonight, we explore the quiet moment when religion stopped comforting medieval people, and began consuming them. A world explained by God. In the medieval mind, nothing was random. Every famine, every illness, every storm had meaning. If crops failed, God was angry. If disease spread, God was warning humanity. If children died, it was punishment. There was no idea of natural disaster. Only judgment. And when people believe the universe is angry, they try to appease it. At any cost. The rise of extreme piety. During times of crisis, moderation vanished. People believed. The more suffering we endure, the more forgiveness we earn. This gave rise to extreme religious practices. Not hidden. Not rare. They became public. They became normal. The flagellants. One of the most disturbing movements was the flagellants. Groups of men, sometimes thousands, marched from town to town. They carried whips. They beat themselves until blood flowed. They believed pain would cleanse humanity. These marches lasted weeks. Participants often starved, became infected, died on the road. Instead of stopping disease, they spread it. Blood, open wounds, crowded cities. Faith turned into a biological disaster. Children sent to die. At times, desperation became delusion. The Children's Crusade is one example. Thousands of children were sent across Europe, unarmed, unfed, unprotected. They were told faith alone would save them. Most never returned. They died of hunger, disease, or were sold into slavery. Entire generations vanished, not through war, but through belief. Witches and scapegoats. When answers failed, blame followed. Communities searched for someone to punish. Women, the poor, the sick, the different. Witch trials erupted. Execution replaced medicine. Villages destroyed their own members. Fear ate itself. This was social collapse disguised as justice. Religion versus medicine. Faith often rejected medical help. Illness was seen as spiritual. Doctors were distrusted. Prayer replaced treatment. Sometimes this helped emotionally. Often, it killed physically. People refused quarantine. They gathered in churches during plagues. Disease spread faster. Faith increased mortality. When hope became dangerous. Hope can save a civilization. But false hope can destroy it. Medieval people believed God would not let humanity end. This belief delayed adaptation. It prevented change. While people prayed, infrastructure collapsed. While they marched, fields went unplanted. Survival requires action. Faith alone was not enough. A civilization turning inward. Over time, communities shrank emotionally. Trust faded. Everyone feared everyone else. Religion, once unifying, became divisive. This psychological isolation weakened survival. A society cannot survive when it no longer trusts itself. When the climate turned against humanity. Entering a quiet, cold world. Breathe slowly. Imagine a world where the seasons no longer obey expectation. Where summer feels like spring. And winter never truly leaves. In the medieval age, people did not fear climate change. They feared endless cold. Tonight, we explore the moment when nature itself became the greatest threat to human survival. And how a silent shift in climate pushed medieval civilization to the edge of extinction. The sky began to change. There was no announcement. No warning. The sky simply changed. Winters grew longer. Summers shortened. Harvests failed without explanation. Modern science calls this period the Little Ice Age. Medieval people called it the end of normal time. The sun that lost its power. Chroniclers wrote strange observations. The sun appeared dim. The sky looked pale. Snow fell during months once warm. Volcanic eruptions and atmospheric dust blocked sunlight. But medieval people did not know this. They believed God was withdrawing warmth from the world. And warmth is life. Frozen fields and dead crops. Crops require predictability. Climate removed it. Grain sprouted too late. Frost killed plants mid-growth. Rain fell at the wrong time. One failed harvest was survivable. Multiple failures were not. Food reserves emptied. Starvation returned, not once, but repeatedly. Animals died first. Livestock suffered before humans. Cold killed grazing lands. Animals weakened. Diseases spread rapidly among herds. When animals died, people lost food, labor, fertilizer. Agricultural collapse followed. This was systemic failure. Villages abandoned. Entire communities vanished. Not through war. Not through plague. Through migration and death. People left frozen land seeking survival. Some never found it. Abandoned villages became ghost landscapes. Nature reclaimed human space. Hunger without end. Cold changed hunger itself. Food shortages became permanent. People adapted to constant malnutrition. Children grew smaller. Adults weakened. Immunity collapsed. Disease spread faster. Cold did not kill directly. It made everything else lethal. Social strain under ice. Cold reshaped society. Resources became guarded. Generosity disappeared. Violence increased. Neighbors fought over fuel. Wood became more valuable than gold. Winter was no longer a season. It was a state of existence. The edge of demographic collapse. Repeated cold cycles stalled population growth. In some regions, population never recovered. Birth rates dropped. Infant mortality rose. Civilization slowed, then stalled. Humanity teetered near the edge. Survival through adaptation. And yet, some survived. They adapted clothing. Stored food differently. Changed architecture. Humanity learned, slowly. Extinction was avoided, barely. Winter rest. As the cold settled. So do your thoughts. The medieval world endured the silence of endless winter. In the next chapter, we will explore mass psychological collapse, when hunger, fear, and trauma broke the human mind itself. For now, rest. The past is cold. But it is quiet. Self-harm increased, quietly, privately. It was not rebellion. It was numbness. When community failed, communal bonds weakened. People withdrew. Isolation replaced cooperation. Trust eroded. A society cannot survive when minds turn inward. Extinction does not always come from outside threats. Sometimes, it grows inside. Near silence. Chroniclers noted strange quiet periods. No festivals. No celebrations. No joy. Human emotion flattened. This was not peace. It was psychological winter. The edge of mental collapse. With no relief, collapse seemed inevitable. But something held. A fragile thread of routine. Work. Prayer. Habit. Humanity endured, not because it was strong, but because it was stubborn. Mind at rest. And now, let the noise fade. The medieval mind carried unbearable weight. And yet, it survived. In the next chapter, we will explore how endless war nearly erased entire populations, when violence became a permanent condition of life. For now, rest. History is quiet. And sleep is safe. When war never ended. A world that never rested. Breathe slowly. In the medieval world, peace was not a condition. It was a pause. War did not arrive suddenly. It simply continued. Tonight, we explore how endless conflict quietly emptied lands, erased villages, and pushed medieval humanity toward extinction, not through one great war, but through never-ending violence. War as a way of life. Medieval people did not prepare for war. They lived inside it. Borders shifted constantly. Kings rose and fell. Armies marched without warning. For peasants, war was not heroic. It was hunger with weapons. Armies that ate the land. Medieval armies rarely carried supplies. They lived off the land. This meant crops destroyed. Livestock stolen or killed. Villages burned. Even when battles never came, armies passed through. and survival disappeared behind them. The death of the countryside. Fields were abandoned. Farmers fled or died. Without farmers, no food was grown. No taxes were collected. No recovery was possible. War hollowed civilization from the outside inward. Civilians as targets. Medieval warfare did not protect civilians. Villages were punished for loyalty, or suspected loyalty. Massacres occurred without record. Entire communities vanished so completely that history forgot they ever existed. This was extinction at a local scale, repeated thousands of times. The 100 Years of Nothing. Some wars lasted generations. Children were born into conflict and died inside it. The 100 Years' War devastated France and England. Not through battles alone, but through constant disruption. Population collapsed. Recovery never fully arrived. Mercenaries and lawlessness. Unpaid soldiers turned into bandits. They looted freely. Law disappeared. Violence became normalized. When survival depends on force, morality dissolves. Society fractures. Women, children, and silent losses. War killed indirectly. Malnutrition. Displacement. Disease. Women and children died without being counted. These losses never entered chronicles. But they erased futures. War and population collapse. Repeated wars stalled population growth. In some regions, population declined for centuries. Villages were never rebuilt. Human presence retreated. Extinction was not sudden. It was cumulative. A world too tired to rebuild. After generations of war, people stopped rebuilding. Why plant crops that will be burned? Why raise children for battle? Hope faded. This is how civilizations end. When the future feels pointless. Survival through fatigue. And yet, somehow, humanity endured. Not through victory, but through exhaustion. When everyone was too tired to fight, survival returned. Peace emerged accidentally. Quiet after violence. Let the sound of marching fade. This is how civilizations end. When the future feels pointless. Survival through fatigue. And yet, somehow, humanity endured. Not through victory, but through exhaustion. When everyone was too tired to fight, survival returned. Peace emerged accidentally. Quiet after violence. Let the sound of marching fade. The medieval world lived with war as background noise. In the next chapter, we will explore how poisoned food, water, and everyday objects slowly killed entire populations, when survival itself became toxic. For now, rest. The battlefield is silent. Poisoned by everyday life. A quiet, invisible threat. Slow your breathing. Not every danger in the medieval world announced itself. Some threats had no sound. No smell. Generations were affected before symptoms were understood. Cosmetics and beauty as danger. White skin was fashionable. People used lead-based cosmetics. Women applied poison directly to their faces. Skin damaged. Organs failed. Beauty shortened life. Buildings that breathed toxins. Paints contained lead. Walls absorbed smoke. Homes trapped toxins. Indoor air poisoned families slowly. People believed illness came from spirits, while their homes harmed them silently. Poisoned minds weakened society. Lead affects the brain. Decision-making suffered. Impulsivity increased. Violence became more common. Leadership weakened. A poisoned population cannot govern itself well. Fertility collapse. One of the most dangerous effects was infertility. Men became sterile. Women miscarried. Birth rates declined quietly. Extinction does not always come from death. Sometimes, it comes from absence of birth. Progress without knowledge. Medieval people advanced technology without understanding consequences. Innovation moved faster than wisdom. This imbalance nearly erased humanity. Survival through ignorance. Ironically, ignorance delayed extinction. People did not know the source, so they adapted accidentally. Some regions used less lead. Those populations survived longer. A clean breath. Take a slow breath. The medieval world was poisoned. Yet it endured. When food became the enemy. The most trusted thing. Slow your breathing. Food is supposed to be safe. It is supposed to sustain life. In the medieval world, food often did the opposite. Tonight, we explore how what people ate quietly pushed humanity toward extinction, not through famine alone, but through contamination, decay, and invisible dangers. A world without refrigeration. There was no cold storage. No preservation science. Food spoiled quickly. People learned to accept rotten smells, strange textures, bitter tastes. If it didn't kill immediately, it was considered safe. This assumption was dangerous. Bread that made people mad. Grain was often infected with ergot, a toxic fungus. Ergot caused hallucinations, convulsions, gangrene. Entire villages suffered mass poisoning. People believed it was divine punishment. In reality, it was bread. Meat that carried death. Meat was rarely fresh. Animals were slaughtered under stress. Disease transferred easily. Parasites thrived. People ate what they could. Because hunger left no choice. Illness followed. Fermentation without control. Fermented foods were common. Sometimes helpful. Sometimes lethal. Bacteria grew unchecked. Poison replaced nourishment. People adapted. But many did not survive. Milk and child death. Milk spoiled quickly. Infants were especially vulnerable. Child mortality soared. Generations thinned before adulthood. This was extinction in slow motion. Water mixed with waste. Food preparation used contaminated water. Waste flowed through streets. Bacteria entered meals. Every bite carried risk. People normalized sickness. Hunger forced bad choices. When food ran out, people ate anything. Roots. Grass. Moldy grain. Some foods poisoned. Others starved slowly. Choice disappeared. Survival narrowed. Nutritional collapse. Even when calories existed, nutrition didn't. Vitamin deficiencies weakened immunity. Disease took advantage. Populations became fragile. One shock could erase them. Food and social breakdown. Hunger destroyed trust. People hid food. Violence increased. Communities fractured. Food scarcity dismantled civilization. Why extinction didn't happen. And yet, humanity survived. Partly through luck. Partly through adaptation. Some methods improved. Some regions learned. Survival was uneven, but enough. A quiet table. Let the table empty. The medieval world ate in fear. And lived. When humanity nearly disappeared. The last quiet story. Slow your breathing. This is the end of the road. Not the end of history. But the end of this long, fragile moment when humanity almost faded away. Tonight, we speak of disappearance. Not the kind marked by explosions or endings, but the quiet kind. The kind history barely remembers. When people vanished without record. Medieval history is full of silence. Entire villages appear once in records. And then never again. No battles. No plagues named. No explanations. Just absence. People didn't always die dramatically. Sometimes, they simply stopped existing. Empty lands. Across Europe, landscapes changed. Fields returned to forest. Roads disappeared. Homes collapsed into earth. Human presence retreated. Nature reclaimed civilization faster than expected. This is what extinction looks like in slow motion. Lost languages, lost cultures. When populations shrink, culture dies first. Dialects vanished. Traditions ended. Stories were forgotten. Entire identities dissolved quietly. History remembers kings, but forgets peoples. The demographic cliff. After centuries of famine, disease, cold, war, poison, and fear, human numbers collapsed. In some regions, population fell by half or more. Recovery took centuries. At multiple points, humanity stood near a demographic cliff. One more shock. And there may have been no return. Why extinction didn't happen. And yet, against probability, against logic, humanity survived. Not because it was strong. Not because it was wise. But because extinction is surprisingly difficult. Small adaptations mattered. A better tool. A safer practice. A warmer shelter. A fortunate climate shift. Survival was uneven. But enough. Survival without understanding. Medieval people did not know they were close to extinction. They did not see the pattern. They lived day to day. This ignorance saved them. Fear of the future can paralyze. They simply endured. The quiet lesson. The medieval world teaches us something uncomfortable. Civilizations do not collapse all at once. They thin. They shrink. They forget. Extinction is not loud. It is quiet. Why we are here. Every person alive today exists because extinction failed. Again. And again. And again. History is not a story of progress. It is a story of narrow survival. Sleep with history. And now, let the past rest. The medieval world endured hunger, cold, madness, war, poison, and fear. And somehow, it survived. So did we. Breathe slowly. History is quiet now. And the night is safe.